Actually, the word mix is not the correct word. I think a better descriptive word would be brew. The Austin
To
Chaiwala.
brew.
Yeah.
Ah,
So this is a
okay.
bottle. It's about $20, but yeah, it's
Nice, good.
yeah,
Austin
yeah,
Chaiwala. Nice, nice.
yeah.
So, I
Indeed,
mean, I
indeed.
wanted to have you on to just talk about this. I mean, there's so many things going on in my head personally.
Hmm.
This is not the
Definitely.
first time in your, life or my
Hmm.
life where this has happened. What we've seen over
Hmm.
the past week or so.
Exactly.
We've probably, the sad thing is we've probably seen worst,
Yeah,
and
we have. Yeah, indeed.
we've lived through it, and we've
2014. Yeah, 2014. I think it
2014.
was
Yeah,
a lot. Yeah, with
exactly.
the flotilla and everything. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and then even on top of that, if you remember, I remember the Beirut bombing pretty
Yeah,
well as well. I
2000s.
think that was
Yeah.
what was that? 2000. I think it was before 2010, right? Something
Yeah, that was
somewhere around that.
2006. Yeah, the Arab
2006.
is
There you go.
yeah, the Lebanese Israel war,
Yeah. So that was
which was
even exactly, and that was even more brutal. I remember, and
mhm,
at the time I used to write a diary, and I remember journaling my thoughts about that.
mhm,
Which
definitely.
aren't too different from what I'm feeling right now. But this is definitely not about what's happening right now. Of course, it is in the sense that this
Mhm,
has triggered this conversation. But
exactly.
sadly, this is going to continue until we find a resolution to this. But I wanted to bring you in because you're pretty much active in these types of
Hmm.
discussions on your socials, and then also I think as an aspiring activist,
Hmm.
and somewhat of an aspiring activist myself.
Hmm.
I think it's important to just tap into these discussions. I think what we usually hear from our parts of the world is
Hmm.
a very disorganized, disenfranchised almost, and
Almost reactionary.
reactionary reaction from Pakistan and
Hmm.
Indo-Pakistan world, which is
Hmm.
which is not really well received in any part of the world, uh,
Exactly.
including the Arab world. So they don't even hold
Exactly.
any of our protests or any of our the desk thumping in
Hmm.
any regards. So I think it's very
Hmm.
important to register ourselves as what our thoughts are and where we stand. And of course we know where we stand, but I think where our thought process is and where how this feeling of justice and standing up against injustice starts and brews from, at least from our personal backgrounds. So
Hmm.
wanted to bring you in. I think one of the first things I also wanted to plug here, in addition to Austin Chaiwal, of course,
Hmm.
is not just Palestine, the Palestinian brutality or the brutality that happened against Palestinians we've seen this week. I think we saw an equally gruesome and probably more saddening attack on a school in Afghanistan.
Hmm.
And although people like you or me have probably equally condemned both of these things with the same hatred against the oppressor, sadly that's not the case for all these people who are standing up against either of those attacks.
Exactly.
So I also
It's
wanted, yeah, I also wanted to talk to you about that. But I mean,
definitely.
generally, I mean, from your background, what do you find in terms of differences? Like, if I was a white American or an Arab or anyone who's not living in that region, and I know generally what your feelings are against, on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, what do you think is misunderstood, and what do you think you need to like clarify from our part of the world where this is still a huge talking point? We still commemorate Kashmir Day in Pakistan, so it's a huge talking point, and Palestine is a huge item of discussion, not just religiously but politically as well. So where do you think is what do you think is misunderstood from our part of the world by people who are non subcontinent?
I think one of the biggest issues, especially speaking with my friends who of Lebanese and Palestinian background, is a lot of times they feel that we in the Indo-Pak region, we do a lot of lip service, but not actual, service of the the cause. For instance, and this is in no disrespect to our people, but I mean, right now, the Prime Minister of Pakistan, for instance, I
Mm-hmm.
understand he's on a Umrah tour of
Mm-hmm.
Saudi Arabia, but he's, meeting with Mohammed bin Salman. He's probably going to go meet with the Khalifa family in Bahrain, and then with the Emirati leaders and with the Qatari leaders. And, you know, uh, let's be real, these Arab nations have abandoned the Palestinian cause.
Mm-hmm.
And, there's a huge push to normalize relationships with the Zionist regime, which, yes, Alhamdulillah, Pakistan being one of the few countries, Pakistan and Bangladesh for that matter, that
Mm-hmm.
explicitly on their passports it says they do not recognize the state of Israel, and these their passport is not valid on those countries, and those people are not welcomed in our country.
Mm-hmm.
And whereas, that's a great gesture, and that is symbolically it's very important, but the problem is we keep siding with these people, and for whatever reason, monetary, financial reasons, or whatever it is, for foreign aid. But we keep, saying, we keep drawing, red lines in the sand, but we keep moving the goalpost,
Yeah,
in a
we do.
way. And so if you think, even from that point of view, from a Kashmiri point of view, they're like, their issue, like, and rightfully so, would be, you keep talking about, Pakistan talks about Kashmir, but what have what has Pakistan actually done for Kashmir or for Palestine for that matter? I mean,
Right.
we talk a great talk, and when we and talking about the infamous image of Zulfikar Ali Bhutto in the UN
Yeah.
ripping up those papers comes to mind. But at the end of the day, those are great symbolic gestures. But
Right.
what are we doing? Right, and that's the question. And especially, like, for instance, a lot of us, we commemorate Al-Quds Day, because especially in the Shia community, because we have an affinity to Ayatollah Khomeini rahmatullah alayh, may Allah bless his soul, who was the founder of the Islamic Revolution in Iran, and who had declared some 40 odd years ago, the day of Al-Quds, the last Friday of holy month of Ramadan, to be a day of remembrance for the Palestinian cause, and for especially Al-Quds, which is Arabic for Jerusalem.
Right.
But the problem, and I mean, I saw this at the Houston protest that I went to, and we've seen this across the board. There is never anyone. Yeah, we're all present at the Al Quds rally, but there's no non-Desi, non-Shia really. That unfortunately causes a lot of issues. Sorry,
Mm-hmm.
my headphones just went out. I apologize about that.
No problem.
Yeah, so that causes a lot of problems for the Arab world, where they're like, you're commemorating our day, but you don't include us. We need to have a more stronger connection. For instance, in 4 days, on the 15th, it is International Naqaba Day, which is the day that the Palestinians celebrate as a day of calamity for them, when the state of Israel was officially recognized in 1948.
Mm-hmm.
And we will be hard pressed to find how many of us in the Indo-Pak world even know about Nakaba Day.
Mm-hmm.
And
I think,
if we
yeah.
are going to go and have these discussions, and we want to hold these protests, well, the first step we need to do is bring in people from Palestine, people from Kashmir, people from these oppressed people. You can't just have a forum on someone and not include them.
Yeah, I think that that's a good point you bring up. I think another point that I've seen over the years, attending the Al Quds rallies, and not just here in Pakistan as well, and attending these sermons, if you like, from the um, various clerics. I think one thing that also misses, uh, from our end is, and maybe that's not our fault, is just the inclusiveness of the whole Islamic community. I
Mhm.
think even in Pakistan, I haven't seen, and and I'd be happy to be proven wrong. I haven't seen Sunnis commemorate Al-Quds Day as, fervorously as we do. I mean,
Mhm.
it's as if it's our day. And if I'm remembering this correctly, a few years ago, this could be 7-8 years ago, there was an attack on an Al-Quds rally in Pakistan, in
Oh wow.
Lahore or somewhere in Punjab,
Mhm.
and that was, and because the reason was because it's Shia dominated rally. So what do you do when a bunch of Shias commemorate or gather together? You bomb them, of course, right? That's just page number one. Um,
Exactly.
and I was so shocked to find that out. I mean, you would understand if it's like a Julus or a Muharram Majlis or something like that, because and even that's barbaric, of course. But
Mhm.
you would be like, okay, anyone who's not in that Majlis is
Mhm.
probably anti that Majlis, right?
Mhm.
Um, but if you're not in the Al Quds rally, what are you saying? Are you like anti Al Quds now as well? Like that's and especially when you have people from the other side screaming about Palestine, as you say, without any action. But when you have a platform, they don't feel like sharing it because it has Imam Khomeini's picture attached to it or his idea attached to it.
So that's the thing, right? Like at that point, I would wonder, it's I I would say the part also lies with us. The blame, part of the blame is with us
Yeah,
as organizers. That have we, we're saying that, oh, you're not joining our cause, but have we done the due diligence to make it inclusive? I
hmm.
mean, how many people outside of the Shia world actually even consider
Know
know
about it.
what?
Yeah, true, true,
And
true.
again, so like if the problem again comes to the fact that we wanna that you don't need to have a picture of Khomeini to be to have this be
For it to
Khomeini.
be considered considered all good stay. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, because
Um,
I think Ayatollah Khomeini would be more than happy to not have his image if it means more people are coming out and standing up for this cause.
of course,
And
or an Iranian flag for that matter. So I think that's also something commonly you see that.
and to me, like one of the things with Al Quds, the problem I see with actually most protests, and Al Quds is actually a great example of this. We come there, we shout, we chant, we have our signs. We, by the way, we get approval from the oppressor to do these protests against the oppressor, right? And to me, it's like, so we got the approval. Hey, Uncle Sam, we're gonna go. Like for instance, in the U.S., more I can speak more for that than any other
Right.
country, which the United States is the biggest ally and supporter of the Zionist regime. We're going here in
Our tax
Houston.
dollars.
Yeah, our tax dollars, about over 3 billion of our tax dollars are going every year to fund the idea.
Right.
We're going protesting. We're getting permits that we're gonna go, and from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. we're gonna be protesting on in markets in Union Square, for instance, San Francisco,
Right.
or by the convention center in San Jose, or
Right.
in downtown Houston, or downtown Dallas, or New York, Chicago. But what is the point of all that? Like, what are we doing besides that protest? Are
I think
we
that's a very good point you brought up, and I want you to continue on that, because I wanted to add another question on top of that. Is something that I've heard from my friends and people around me when I've invited them to an Al Quds rally is like, hey, dude, what's the point? Like you
exactly?
have like 60 people coming in, at least in Fremont, for example, or
Yeah,
100 people gathering somewhere in San Francisco, or blah blah blah. It's a small number, dude. That's not going to liberate Palestine or anything for that matter. That's not going to liberate even a house in Palestine. So why are we even doing this? And I always struggle to find an answer to this, other than the fact that, hey, if I can't do anything, at least I can do this. So where do you stand on that? Do you feel like these protests are counterproductive, or are we just trying to pander to our own goodness in our hearts, where we're saying that, hey, at least
I'm.
I'm this good?
I mean, to be quite candid, right? And I say this with full responsibility. If any of your viewers want to come and find me, my Instagram handle is Saroshi 510. They can come talk to me. They can find me on Facebook.
We'll
Zaib,
tag
you
you.
give out
Yeah.
my number.
Yeah. Yeah.
They can
We'll
come.
tag you on the post of this
Or
one. Yeah.
to have this conversation. But the problem is, we're not doing this for Palestine. We're doing this because it makes us feel good. And to be
Fabulous.
honest,
There you go.
it's become trendy, right? Going to Al
Sure.
Quds. it's cool. At Imam Bargat Sabah, I remember like, oh yeah, we're doing Al-Quds rally because it's cool, right?
Yeah.
You show up with your little kafayas, you show up with the little Palestinian flags, Irani flags, and like it looks cool.
You
You
have
look
a
like
token rabbi
yeah,
speaking.
token rabbi. I mean, and to be honest with you, I actually had a discussion. I actually picked up the rabbi who came to the Houston rally.
Right.
Nice guy, Davud Feldman, very nice guy from New York. Enjoyed conversating with him, but I asked him point blank, where do the Israelis get this concept of the right to return? And obviously, he gave me an esoteric answer, which was, it's a state of mind that you need to go, and that God has forbidden you. But to be honest with you, it is part of their belief and religion that they do that is their land.
Right. Right.
So, I mean, asking a Jew to denounce the return to Zion, and that's where the term Zionist comes from, is someone who it is the Jews' right now to go to Zion, right?
Right.
It's like asking a Shia to denounce the Vilayat of Ali ibn Abi Talib.
It's part of the
identity.
Right.
So, like, again, the issue that I have with these protests is, who are we doing these protests for? And to be honest with you, the reason we do these protests, I can't speak for in Pakistan, but in the US, is because there's no real general harm to us. There's no real,
We're exercising our freedom. That's what it is.
Right? Like, because one year I remember, and this was, I think, 2015 or 16. That was when they had like those prisoners, who were drinking like salt water just to survive and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I suggested was, why don't we do a sit-in at the governor's mansion in Austin, and like cuff ourselves to the doors and refuse to leave, or go to the Capitol, the Texas Capitol, and refuse to leave until the state of Texas, or the Texas legislature, issues a bill condemning the ill treatment of the Palestinian political prisoners. And I was met with the response, which I actually anticipated, but I was disappointed by it. And that was, we have our lives. We don't want to get in trouble. We don't want, like, we have our jobs, we have our, careers. We don't, we have our families. We don't want to put ourselves at risk. And that's what it is. It's, like, to be honest with you, you think about a Palestinian, you tell them, oh, Palestine, don't you cry, or Gaza, don't you cry. I'm here for you. I'm always here for Palestine. Whatever these, slogans. To them, it's like, okay, these are platitudes. You're not doing anything for me. Actually, I'll give you a small example. It's Ramadan. We're eating makjul dates, right? Mm-hmm. There is a lot of dates are sourced from Israel.
Yeah.
How many actually do the research to do the due diligence to make sure that these are not a product of Israel? Or, the Palestinian version of those dates. Right.
I think that's an interesting point you brought up. I think that links with the BDS discussion I also wanted to bring up, which I feel is a much bigger platform to really have your voices heard, because I think hitting anyone financially is probably the best way. I mean, I think protests are not going to solve anything, in my personal opinion. But I'm not going to say don't have protests. But I think still it's a good platform to at least raise your voice. I think that's all what it is, but it's not going to resolve anything. Exactly.
Is the first step.
It is the first step. And I think a very basic first step, like come out and say what's right.
And that's a bare.
Yeah, and I wanted to get back to you on that, but I also wanted to bring up a couple of more things here. One is some like reactions, right? So we hear about the reactions, we hear about tweets, we hear about this and that. One of the reactions I shared with you about, Andrew Yang's reaction, which was quite ridiculous. I'm sorry, what?
You seen the backlash he's gotten?
Oh, I haven't seen the backlash, but has he gone back on his words or no?
No, but like AOC called him out.
He did. Oh, she did.
Yeah, and Ilhan Omar called him out.
I saw Ilhan's tweet. I didn't see AOC's.
Yeah, I'll forward it to you when I find it. And the
Wow,
thing was,
that's good.
uh, he was actually going to a Eid gala,
Oh,
and they canceled. The organizers told him, please don't come.
of course, that's
So
ridiculous.
yeah, so it's he is getting his, and that's the problem with a lot of the miseducation in the U.S., the indoctrination, almost the Zionist indoctrination, where you know a false equivalency, where Palestinians are seen as these terrorists, you know, launching rockets and poor Israelis, while the Israeli aggressors who are these settlers were coming in and encroaching, and like we're not even talking about the fact of as that we don't recognize the Zionist regime. We're talking about the fact that in 1967, the border that was drawn between
Mm-hmm.
Palestine and Israel, that these settlers are encroaching upon that land. The illegal
Yeah,
occupation of
we've almost gone past 1948 now. We're like, dude, okay, so let's forget the original
yeah.
Palestine. Let's just give us what you actually promised us, right? So the
At,
discussion has moved beyond that now. It's like ridiculous now.
exactly at this point, the even if you look at the Palestinian or PLO and Hamas and all these guys, Hamas, Fatah, all them, they're not arguing for a two-state solution anymore. They're saying, give us the right as an equal within Israel.
Right.
They're not getting that either. And the thing is, I mean, I don't know if you saw the video of that one Zionist settler who broke into this Palestinian lady's house. And his response was, if I don't take over your house, somebody else is going to do it. And that's the brazen brutality of what's going on. You are like, I mean, Gaza to this day is the largest open air prison.
Right. And I wanted to go back to on the response. The reason why I brought up that tweet from Andrew Yang, I think another person who's getting a lot of stick in the media, at least in the Pakistani, not media, but like the Twitter space, is Malala's tweet. Did you see that?
I did not.
So first of all, where do you where do you stand on Malala? Are you like anti Malala, pro Malala? Like where do you stand?
Personal take on Malala. I respect her as a person. I respect her as a humanitarian, as someone who's fighting for women's rights and for, especially in Pakistan, for
Education, yeah.
educational rights for
But
young.
you're not one of those people who think that she wasn't shot, right? So you're not.
No, definitely not. I mean, the thing is, to me, like, yes, she was, definitely a target of a hate crime by the Taliban who
Right.
saw threat. Uh, do I believe that she is a God sent leader for the people of Pakistan? No.
No, of course not. Of course, nobody should
She's
or
literally,
does that.
yeah.
But I think some of the people who are anti her believe that people who support her are thinking that she's the answer to every problem Pakistan has. Of course not. That's not
She's,
the point. She's a
I mean,
kid. She's a kid. She's an absolute kid. So let's just keep her
yeah.
to that. I think my problem with a couple of things. I think it's almost a dilemma in my head. When I saw her tweet, I my honest reaction was I was like, I think you could have done better,
Mhm.
because it was like a Hollywood person, like a one of those Hollywood personalities,
Scripted.
a
Yeah.
scripted tweet where it's very mild. It's not like, and I'm not expecting her to say chant death to Israel or anything like that, but I mean, just name. I've seen footballers with so much more stakes in part of their careers, who are living and earning their livelihoods in the UK, come out with bigger statements. So,
What I Let me answer it this way. I think Malala needs to go spend some time in Ireland for a couple of years.
oh yeah,
That
yeah, of
might.
course, of course, of course, of course. So my honest reaction was that, and then part of the where the dilemma comes in is when I saw another tweet which says that why are we expecting her to speak for this? Like, she's not an elected leader. She's not a celebrity. She's a kid. So
Exactly.
why why do we need her to speak about anything, and why should she be criticized for that matter? So where do you stand on those two dilemmas? I think those two arguments.
So my take on this is, I think, especially in Pakistan, we have this, and in India too, for a larger part, we have this whole issue of hero worship, right?
Yeah.
And case in point, the reason Imran Khan right now is the prime minister of Pakistan, that's a prime example of hero worship, right?
True.
The guy, a great cricketer, doesn't mean he's going to be an amazing politician.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she has her niche. It's great that she put out a tweet, but that's not something we should expect from her.
Exactly.
And
I think, yeah, that's
this,
a fair point. Yeah.
and in fact, I think it's better that a Pakistani female educationalist icon does not go on record speaking about the plights of the Palestinian cause. Because, and I'll quote Sayyid Ali Sistani on this, when the Americans invaded in 2003, they went to him and said, hey, we realize you're the most powerful person in this country. How do you want to run this country? And his response was a very beautiful response. And I think a lot of us should, and there's a lot of wisdom in this, and we should take it into note, where he said to them that Ayatollah Sistani said to the American general that you are an American, and I, by birth and by citizenship, am an Iranian, and this is a country of the Iraqis. Let the Iraqis decide what they want to do.
Right.
That's, we can show our support and solidarity, but we shouldn't be the leading voice in that.
We should be allies. We should realize that our place is allies.
Yes, because as much as we like to talk about this whole Ban al-Muslimin and Wahdat al-Muslimin and the unity
Muslim Ummah concept. Yeah,
these are noble concepts, but in reality, we are all bound to our nation states. We all have our priorities, and
tribes.
And our tribes, and not everybody can be Ali Sistani and Ali Khamenei, or someone like Neymar, or someone, or not Neymar, or like Ronaldo or something that has the star power to go put out a tweet or
Ronaldo
a statement.
does that, yeah.
And
Mo Salah did it, and Sadio Mane did it. Right now, I saw his post as well.
Exactly, and you have like people like Bernie Sanders, they can do it, right? Like
exactly.
But not everybody is that level of leader. Certainly Malala is not. I know a lot of her supporters are trying to make her have to be that.
Mm-hmm.
But she is, at the end of the day, a kid who's getting her bearings. I mean, would you expect in that regards, if not Zafar, what's his name? Bilal Bhutto Zardari, if he had put out a statement, everybody would be condemning him too. So why
exactly.
Why is the same level of scrutiny not given to Malala, who, by the way, is older than her? He actually has political positioning, and he is an elected member of the Pakistani parliament.
He is, exactly. He is. Exactly. I think too much is expected of her. That's we'll have a different chat, on Malala's existence and why she's so polarizing, which to this day, really, surprises me, and I can't understand why that is the case. But
Ego.
It's mostly ego in a nutshell. One more thing before I let you go, I wanted to also bring up and discuss, which is something very close to both of our hearts, is the bigotry that we also see amongst us, right? We see, as I mentioned at the top of the episode, we see people really crying out, rightfully so, for Palestine, but no mention happens of the plight of the Hazaras. I did an episode on Hazaras when I talked about what we should be in terms of we're both privileged individuals in that perspective. Even as part of the Shia clan, we're privileged within that clan, right? Because we're not from a skin like how we look.
Exactly.
We can't be recognized as a practicing follower of the exactly. So
sorry. I was saying I actually was having that exact discussion with one of the brothers a couple days ago about how we were talking about how, and it was actually Sayyid Bilal Rizvi. He's an alim, up and coming alim, but wonderful zakir. If the Ribatul ever has a chance, they should definitely invite him.
Right.
We were talking about this and how the now in Pakistan, I don't know if you've heard, they're trying to start the Hazara political party. And the problem that is, which with that is, unfortunately, that kind of misses a point where they're not attacking the Hazara because the Hazara look like the Hazara. They attack the
Right.
Hazara ideological beliefs, as you said.
And
And
they're attacking the ideological belief, and Hazaras are an easy target. That's how I
exactly,
describe it. They're not anti-Hazara per se.
exactly. You and I, as a Shia, we can sit here, sit at home, and do our majlises at home, and we will never be caught,
Yeah,
quote unquote, right?
quote unquote, quote. Yep.
Yeah. But you know, I can go, like, we are both Urdu speaking. We can go to any part of Bancholi
Mm,
or any part of Karachi, and the first question wouldn't be, "Oh, tum Shia ho." It will be, "Oh, you're Mahajir or you're Urdu speaking."
right.
Likewise, we have
It's all
friends in
blanketed. Our own
yeah,
identity is blanketed amongst so many identities, like Sindhi, Punjabi, Mahajir, and then comes Shia or Sunni, right?
exactly.
Um, uh, Another element of this bigotry that we see within our communities is and it is bigotry. I mean, prove me wrong. I don't think there's any other reason why people wouldn't be speaking about one atrocity and not the other, especially if it's happening back to back on the same day even, right?
I would say
um
more bigotry. It's it's bigotry, yes, but it's also part and parcel ignorance.
yeah,
Or
to give them the benefit of the doubt, yes, ignorance. But I know people who know this is happening. I mean, our tweets have been like exploding like crazy. People know about this event, but still they don't speak about it. So ignorance is, I think, a very small way to describe it, but I think it's mostly bigotry. But anyway, but another thing of what I see is the reaction that we see that anytime Tayyip Erdogan speaks on this, which is
Mhm.
good that he does as a head of state of a Muslim country. Uh, Speaks really well on the Palestinian cause, anti-Israel, all of that stuff, and he
but
brings
but
on the emotions. But at the same time, his country does have economic relationships with the country. This country
yeah,
does recognize the state of Israel, right? So that's we're not gonna assume that's not happening, right? But at the same time, I wanted to bring your thoughts on this point that I always ponder about is we have this one person who has state relationships, speaks really well against Israel, is touted to be a Muslim leader. And we
mhm.
all clap for him and we say, great, good job. Um, but then we have a country by the name of Iran who does all of that minus the state relationship, actually denounces the state of Israel from day one of their existence in their current form. But
Mhm.
yet they are considered, a secret ally of Israel. Have you heard this as well?
Yeah, yes.
So, how do you describe this? This can't be ignorance. This is sheer bigotry, in my opinion.
This is bigotry, and again, this is coupled with ignorance, right? Like, this
Yeah.
is coupled with, I'll give you a story of someone you and I know. I'm not going to mention their name.
Mm-hmm.
There's a brother within our community
Mm-hmm.
back home, Fremont and Sabah, that he was born Sunni. He lived in one of the Arab states,
Mm-hmm.
and he came into uh, he was told, oh, like in that particular state, Arab state, there were also a lot of Shias there too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Told stay the Shias because on the 9th of Muharram they turn off their lights and then they do orgies, and
Yeah. Yeah.
they do all these stupid stuff. So he's
Yeah.
like, okay, what? I'm gonna go for myself and I'm gonna go see. He went there. He listened to the majlis. He learned about Shia Islam. He came back and he said to the Mufti who had told him this, he's like, you're lying. He's like, had you ever gone? No. But that's what I've heard from my elders. And that a lot of times, like this, secret ally things, you go tell them, okay, where do you get this from? And it's like, oh, I heard it from the elders. And then, to be honest with you, let's talk, if we're going to talk about Turkey and Iran, then we have to talk about another very important country in that region. Uh, because of their petrodollars, they have been very well at funding their perverted and, to be honest, deranged ideology, and across the Muslim world. And not only across the Muslim world, but in the US. You can go to, and quoting Sayyid Ammar Naqshbani, you can go to any Sunni masajid and you will find, you'll pick up a book and you look at it, where was it published? The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia.
The
And
beloved
because,
kingdom.
yes, and to be honest with you, Erdogan and Mohammed bin Salman, all these guys, I'm like, yeah, great, you're talking about the Palestinian cause, but how are you aiding and protecting the Palestinians? Here's the thing. To me, when I hear that, Iran is financing Hamas, I don't take that as as a defensive. I'm like, yeah,
Yeah. Thank you
they're,
very
they're
much. Yeah.
yes, my Shia brothers are funding the only resistance in Palestine.
Which who the resistance which has serious ideological and existential
Mhm.
differences with the Iranian people and our community, and they don't even consider us if we should be alive.
Yeah, I mean, majority of Palestinians are of the Salafist brand,
Right.
but I have ran into Palestinians who have nothing but ill will towards Shias. But you ask them, okay, what's your opinion of Sayyid Hassan or of Imam Khomeini? They're like, oh, we love Sayyid Hassan, or we love
Hmm.
Sayyid Ruhollah Khomeini, because they recognize that in their time of need, in their time of isolation, the only people that stood up for them are the Shias of Al Muhammad. And as Shias, we should take pride and lessons that what we have been able to do in Iran, what we have been able to do in South Lebanon, why can we not emulate that in Pakistan? That, stop relying on the government to come and rescue you, or
Hmm.
foreign aid and the UN to rescue you. We need to embark on this journey of self-reliance, and we need to the first thing I think the Shias of the Indo-Pak need to do is unify, and we need leadership. We need to unify ourselves, and we need to find that leadership. I think Sayyid Maulana Shansha Naqvi is a wonderful example of
Huge
leadership.
example. Yeah.
Yes, or even Maulana Sajid Naqvi,
Hmm.
uh,
Or
and
Amir Zaidi. Maulana Zaidi is also a fantastic example of that.
exactly, and and people like AMZ, Ali Murtaza Rizvi, Ali
Hmm.
Murtaza Zaidi. We
Yeah,
need
Ali
we
Mullah.
Yeah, we have these ulama, right? We have people that are willing to stand up, but we need to stand up. And I think the thing that the beauty that we can take from the Palestinian cause. I mean, Al Aqsa, we know what was happening. The 27th of Ramadan for our brothers in Ahl Sunnah is the night of Qadr.
Hmm.
It's Laylatul Qadr, it's Shab Qadr. And they were there with rocks defending Al Aqsa.
Admirable.
But rocks. In Pakistan, I mean, especially if you go into the tribal regions, everybody has a gun. How are you telling me that people can come and kill 60 or in Kabul, right? Like, how are you telling me that someone has the audacity to come and kill 50 of our daughters in broad daylight?
Right.
And Shahadat is, of course, the miras of Al Muhammad and the Shias of Al Muhammad, right? But the Shias of Al Muhammad also need to rise up. I
And they
mean,
also didn't go looking for it. Al Muhammad
exactly,
didn't go look for Shahada. They were, they were the circumstances that were created. They accepted it, yes, but
exactly.
they didn't go out and stand in front of swords and said, yeah, just kill me so I can get Shahada. No, you still
And
have to be smart and protect yourself.
exactly. And even when they were being killed, until the moment they were killed, they were murdered, they kept resisting the oppressor,
Hmm.
kept fighting back against the oppressor. And I mean, Imam Hussein's the perfect example. Like, he literally died defending what his principles.
Yep.
He didn't put his sword down and say, okay, you can come and kill me. No,
I'll
he
be a
fought.
Shaheed either way, right?
Yeah, yeah. He kept fighting and he kept giving dawah till the moment he died.
Right.
Likewise, I will use the example of his, but I love, what they have done. It's a militant organization of, maybe 5,000, 10,000 strong, right?
Hmm.
With AK-47s and RPGs. And they have been, 2006, it's been almost 2 decades since the Zionist regime has even dared to step into South Lebanon.
Right. Exactly. And that was a huge, huge standoff from them as well. So, Yeah, it was, again, like I said, couldn't have found the right person to have this conversation with. So really appreciate your time that you've given me on such short notice. I think the crux of our discussion, as I said, is it's to talk about just the generic, aspect of this conflict. I didn't want to focus in just on what happened, as brutal and unacceptable as it was. I think we all condemn it with our absolute mind. What I just
Mhm.
want to make sure anyone who listens to this is don't be triggered selectively. I think that's
Mhm.
a very important thing, and I, have that struggle like anybody else as well. That I
Mhm.
also keep checking my privileges and see, hey, am I just reacting to a certain type of violence or certain type of injustice,
And
or am I reacting to all injustice? Because that should be our goal. No one's a masoom, no one's perfect,
definitely.
but for the 14. So it's always very important to not just be you know um, you know um, you know headstrong about how you react and what do you react, but I think it's also very important to look around and see, okay, if something's equally horrendous has happened around, regardless of what your ideological differences is, they were kids. Those were innocent kids. So I think, like, we all stood up for the army public school massacre, which was also just brutal.
Mhm.
Everyone stand up for the massacre that happened or continues to happen against the Hazara Shias, and then also continue to support the Palestinian cause through
Definitely.
whatever means we can do. Any
In
any
the
parting notes?
Yeah, like in the words, adding on to your point, in the words of Dr. King, an injustice anywhere is an injustice everywhere, and we need to be cognizant of that. And while we're talking about Palestine and Kashmir and about what's going on in Kabul and to the Hazara, right here in the United States, we are still having police brutality. We have
Hmm?
young African
True,
American Latinos being murdered by the state sanctioned police.
true.
The state murdering them, and that is also an injustice and uh,
And I
a
wanted to, and I want to, do a separate podcast on that too, because I think one of the very important points you brought up was we getting like, where when we do protest, we're actually asking the oppressor that, hey, can we come out and speak against you? I think that's very important. That's a very important aspect of protesting, because when things get violent,
Mhm.
everyone starts saying, hey, it shouldn't happen, this shouldn't happen. Case in point, the Black Lives Movement, when things started to get a little bit quote unquote violent, with stores being robbed and blah blah blah, people were like, oh, this shouldn't happen because protests should always be peaceful. And I'm like, are we
No, it
are we
shouldn't.
saying
Oh,
are we
Lord,
saying that we need to give the validation of the very people oppressing us, that how
exactly.
we should? That's ridiculous. That's just nonsensical.
Definitely. It's, I mean, in a few minutes, let me just like wrap that up on that. The whole point of a protest is to make those who don't know about it inform them, and
Hmm.
those who know about it and are complicit in it to make them uncomfortable.
Exactly.
My presence should be an inconvenience for you. When I'm protesting Al Quds, that should be a reminder to you that there are kids dying under the bombs every day. When I'm
Hmm.
protesting Kashmir, there are kids that are being shot with rubber with pellet
Pallet
guns.
guns, yeah.
That when I'm talking about the Hazara, that they literally in the last 10 years we've had how many attacks on the Hazara community?
It's
How many
just
attacks on
ridiculous. Yeah.
The Shia target killing and the genocide of the Hazara community? That's a and we need to realize that it's okay to be inconvenienced.
Exactly. Exactly. And then only the people who are protesting, only
Mhm.
they can, come out and say, okay, how we should modify our protest. Not people who are being who are who
Protest
we are protesting
exactly.
against. They have no right to come out and say how people should and shouldn't protest. So on that note, I would like to end this one. So really appreciate your time, Sarosh. And shout out to Austin Chaiwala one more time. I'll definitely
Thank you.
try this when I get there. Is he shipping, by the way? Is he shipping around the
Yeah,
country?
Amazon. I can send you the link
Oh, I would definitely love to try it then.
if you want to put it
Absolutely.
up on the podcast
Oh
as
yeah,
well.
yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. I will for sure. I'll definitely try it myself too. So really appreciate your time, man. Have a good one. Thanks.
That of your listeners that are in Austin, he has a location in Austin and in Houston as well, in Sugarland, right
Oh,
by.
perfect.
So if they want to come out, check him out. Yeah.
Awesome. All right, man. Thanks
All
a
right.
lot. Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.